When it comes to pesticides, how you mix them matters. Doing it the right way can optimize the performance of the products you're using and keep you and the environment safe. Hello, I'm Sally Raymond. I work with University of Minnesota Extension with their Pesticide Safety and Environmental Education program, and today we're going to be talking about tank mixing. With this, safety is our primary concern every time. If we mix incorrectly, that can lead to things like clogged nozzles, spotty applications, and even spills. So I'm here today with Matt Farr. He's an extension educator with the crops team. So Matt, before we get started with mixing, where should we be set up doing that kind of activity?
When we load chemicals, we'd like to do so on a cement slab or other concrete barrier, but if we're out in the field, the back of a chem truck will do just fine.
You know that we always like to talk about PPE with the pesticide safety training. So what PPE do we need to have available to us for this mixing process?
Well, Sally, we usually start, as you know, with the label, and that's going to call out any PPE needed for the mixers, loaders, and handlers. They might have some extra precautions. One example would be a splash-proof apron, eye protection like goggles, or even a full face shield, some nitrile gloves, and rubber boots that are water resistant. And those mixers, loaders, and handlers are, handling the most concentrated form of pesticides, so they need sometimes extra protection.
I see we've also got some examples of different measuring tools here. What do we need to be thinking about as far as tools that we need to measure the product before we mix?
So pesticides come in liquid forms as well as powders and granules, and so they're going to each have their own specific measuring container that absorbs their density differences and the amounts. Now, not all pesticides can be handled safely, so they'll be in a closed system if they're especially volatile or caustic.
So first we want to make sure that our tank is totally cleaned out. Don't want to have any residual product in there that might mess up our tank mix going forward as we get started with it. In addition to that, it's a good idea to do a jar test, which is basically like a miniature version of your tank mix, to see if there's going to be any issues with any of the chemicals that you're combining.
So do that homework up front, right, Sally? So down the road, we don't have any delayed time, labor, equipment headaches.
So to do a jar test, we're basically just going to add reduced proportions of our products into a quart jar, and you want to do it in the order that you would actually add them to your tank, and then see if there are any incompatibilities, if things are foaming or not mixing the way you'd like them to. Some examples of incompatibility are like oil and water, where they're not mixing at all. Sometimes you'll get like a jello-like or cottage cheese kind of solid forming, and other things as well. And if you can do this, a little bit ahead of time, it gives you the chance to see if there's going to be issues in a few hours, after making your tank mix. So there's an order that you want to go about it to try and get things to cooperate in the tank together. So what order do we want to add things to the tank?
I've put on my long sleeve shirt, my goggles, and of course my nitrile rubber gloves to talk about mixing order. One acronym that we have to remember is WALES.
W is for water, wettable powders, and water dispersible granules. A is for agitation. L is for liquid flowables. E is for emulsifiable concentrates. And S is for solutions and soluble liquids.
And you'll want to make sure to maintain agitation in the tank while you're adding chemicals. If we use that order, we'll typically have the best luck in mixing.
There's differences between measuring out liquids and then solids. So what do you get started with here with your liquids?
Absolutely. Liquids for a volumetric measurement is fairly simple because densities are consistent across most liquid products. So now that I have my PP on, I'm going to go ahead and show us how to measure out, let's say, 150 milliliters of liquid product, like so. Okay. Now with granule or solid products, I have an example of a dry granulated pesticide here. I'm going to use the approved and provided cup that came with this product. It's going to absorb the density of this product uniquely. So if I wanted 7.5 ounces, for example, I can go ahead and fill up to that line and then apply this product in the correct order. I want to stress again that we need to use for powders and granule products the appropriate measuring cup typically provided with the product, because all densities will be different as opposed to the volumetric measurement that we have with water. Your backup, if you do not have that specific measuring, is going to be a scale, because the mass of the product will be the most accurate way to measure it.
You can find all the directions for how to mix by looking for sections like mixing instructions or tank mix sequence procedures on the product's label. The label will tell you what limitations there might be or recommendations that the manufacturer has for tank mixing that product. All right, now let's review how to tank mix.
You'll want to begin with a clean tank and tools. Make sure you use a containment pad or a designated area to mix. We know that there might be special PPE requirements for mixer loader handlers on the label. We know that there's a specific mixing order that we should be using. As one example, that acronym WHALES. And that there are certain tools, different measuring cups for liquids versus solids, that we need to measure certain products. And of course, when you're done mixing, make sure you go wash up.
Okay, now you know how to mix pesticides the right way, safely, accurately, and without wasting product.